Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on when you say this. My name is Karen Griffith. I'm an inner freedom and embodiment coach. I also go by happiness coach, wellness coach, mental fitness coach, and also mentor. I sometimes do that from time to time. And I also offer services around NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So without further ado, I promised a live around the one universal law I would invite you to pay attention to right now. Why, Karen? The reason being that you have to be hiding under a rock to see what's going on out there in the world today. We are in a state of chaos, and that's not even including the internal chaos you might be experiencing. That is stress, undue pressure, the weight of responsibility, the obligations you're facing on a daily basis. You've got stuff happening around the world. We have increasing cost of living. The environment is under threat, which is actually threatening the survival of the planet sooner than we think. I think some are saying 30 years' time, which is obviously concerning if you want to be around for a long time like I do. And there's also a lot of wars going around the world, and I get that there's only so much you can do as an individual. Yes, that's true. But if you were to zoom out for a minute or two, which is my invitation to you to consider this law, you might see for yourself that there are things out there, that there are things available for you to do that will impact the universe and also is beneficial for you and the world as a whole. So with that in mind, the law, I'm going to mention two laws because they're very similar. The law of cause and effect, I'll say that again, the law of cause and effect and the law of the right action. The former I mentioned can be linked to karma, understanding that what you reap, you will sow. The law of right action is more along the lines of, sorry, I'm going to just look at my notes. It's more along the lines of doing good deeds and knowing what you put out there will come back to you multiplied. So it's also considering and really seeing for yourself and understanding your impact when you use your choice, because every choice, every decision comes with a set of consequences and how it impacts the self and others, because everything has, so to speak, an energetic signature, some of which will be positive and will give a desirable result, others not so positive, undesirable, and will give a negative result. And that's where, and I do talk about it often, but I'm going to dip into a bit of the spirituality side. It's something I've been practicing myself for a number of years. It's just that I've not really been comfortable about talking about it. I talk it about it in different ways, without saying specifically. But I thought it might be useful as a teachable moment so that anybody that's following me and desiring to be improve themselves, grow, work on their personal self-development, work on their awareness of self so they understand how they relate to others in relation to the life they want to lead, then I felt it would be beneficial to go into a bit of an explanation and also give some scientific, because I like to think that I talk about what I know, otherwise I won't necessarily talk about it, because I'm not gossip, I'm not entertainment. What I feel I offer and what I believe I offer is places to look to improve, so that it might be beneficial for you to either go away and work on those things yourself, because you can't do it all. Always take what resonates, let go of the rest, or decide to work with me, in which case there'll be more of a structure to what you are understanding and learning about self, so that you can go more in the direction towards what is wanted and away from what isn't wanted, less desirable, so to speak. So I digress. So the law of cause and effect is similar to the law of right action, but they both are important because of the fact that everything you do has a consequence. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. So it's connecting the dots for yourself, the thoughts you're having. So what's your internal dialogue? What does that look like? How do you talk to yourself? How you talk to others, because words have an impact. And really consider for that and the nature of how that is in line with your integrity, your values. So it's an invitation to be reflective, to take on board what is important by recognising how you are showing up. Actions and the emotions, because they all have, it has a capacity and vibrates out, which is why it comes back. Hence the statement, you reap what you sow. So I think another statement is no good deed goes un. I can't remember, my memory blank. Sorry. No good deed goes unrecognised, or something like that. If you're watching this, please do make a comment and correct me, because it's gone out. So it's really thinking, because I'm trying to get the invitation for you to zoom out of self and think about your impact on yourself and the society as a whole. So you then take the time, and I'm going to give you a few ideas to work with here. You take the time to say, okay, how can I make my thinking more loving of self? How can I be of better service to others? So how can I really be in the moment with the people that matter to me, so that I'm understanding where they're coming from? So it's generosity, being generous, being present in the moment with others, spending time in a way where you're really hearing what they have to say. So it's kind of that meaty stuff that tends to go unnoticed in a world that we live in, that has got us basically into instant gratification, not really consuming, not necessarily creating from a space where actually we are doing what is right, what is meaningful, as opposed to what is superfluous. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. Big word for me today. But it's really understanding everything that we do, whether we understand it or not, has a negative or positive consequence, undesirable, desirable. What we want to work towards is the more desirable, which will reverberate and can come back to us multiplied, but comes back from a place of authenticity and integrity. And we can't do that if we're not aware of our effects. And so it's what it is, and it isn't codependent, it isn't overgiving. And I've mentioned a few times how I have been working on and healed. It still shows up from time to time, people pleasing. So that is, an example of that. Or we can be hyper vigilant to the degree it doesn't allow. This is hyper vigilant. We're so fearful, and that will have an impact on how we show up, how we react to others, because it can lead us to be impulsive, because that's the other side I wanted to mention. When we're impulsive, we can sometimes create results that is harmful for self and impact others in our impulsivity. And one of the tips I would suggest is really practice the pause, stillness, be with self, even if it's uncomfortable for like 5 minutes. And if it feels uncomfortable and you notice that, good. I say good because that's information, it's data. So that should indicate to you, if you find it difficult, and I was there, I did say, probably depend on where you've been following and watching me, I used to struggle with yoga. I actually looked into it about 25 years ago, and it wasn't for me. I couldn't sit still long enough. My mind was like, I didn't realise it was my ego. I know more now. Been beneficial with the coaching and understanding myself, doing the work and learning the science behind, and also getting underneath human behaviour, which has been a new thing. Science, human behaviour, the biology and how chemicals work in the body. I was anxious. That's what it was. So it was understanding I needed to give myself time to sit down with myself, time to relax, because it was okay. For some reason, I thought I had to be so responsive, but it was impacting me and my mental health in particular. So I digress again. So, but it does actually lead me very importantly to the tips and why it matters to balance out your nervous system in relation to the laws I mentioned. And I also remembered something I forgot, which is critical, I believe, because Ralph Waldo Emerson, some of you may have read Think and Grow Rich. I'm pretty sure he's shown up in that book. I'm not sure if he's shown up The Secret. He once said, it's the law of laws. This is the law of cause effect. I will mention again, it's similar to the law of right action. The distinction is understanding the law of cause. Every choice, every decision you make has a set of consequences, and it comes back like a boomerang. So think of it in terms of karmic terms, but even deeper than that, because there's also a sense of actually, I'm not going to go there because I may get that piece wrong because I'm getting conflicting information. So I'm not going to go into the other piece I was going to say. With the law of right action, it's seeing your impact on others. So the invitation is to really take the time to consider and explore all the possibilities, options, which requires you to be open-minded and more understanding of perspectives different to your own. And that is in itself valuable to understand, because then you will soon see that there are things to unlearn because you're not always right. And you may have come across and absorbed a lot of stuff, maybe from parenting, conditioning, programming, depending on your environment. And you'll soon learn that you've come up with some belief stories, which is why I learned about NLP and the value of the language that you get to improve yourself, because you may not necessarily be present to aware of how you are showing up. And this is also where compassion and empathy of self and offering it to others tracks and stands up, because you might start to see that there's things choices you're making, decisions you're making, and actually they're in disagreement to the things you're saying, and also in disagreement to your values that act in odds. So your creation, what you're manifesting, is not what you want, and you don't necessarily recognise it because you're not seeing what's going on, the beliefs that will be linking back to, on a deeper level, a root cause and experience when you made a decision. So it's unpacking all that, and it doesn't seem so attractive, and I get that, but I think a good place to look for yourself is just to take some time and observation of how you make decisions and the outcomes you're getting, and really be honest about, is this what you want? Because until you're aware, you can't change a goddamn thing, I'm telling you. You can't. And what I often see is people will be telling me the same things they've been telling me for years and haven't done a damn thing to change. But they're still saying it like it's going to happen by, I call it osmosis, like it's going to happen by magic. That's not how it works. No. There needs to be some understanding about your part in that, which needs to change, because it's inner game, outer game. Your inner world, your outer world won't change till your inner world does. Take it from somebody who knows. And trust that what I'm sharing with you, if you're staying with me here, if it's resonating, you're thinking, maybe that's something I can take away and investigate for myself. Karen, I love you, but maybe I need to hear more. Go away, do that, maybe watch other videos that I've done, or other people that can cover that for you. But I hope it's giving you a perspective just to take on board, what is my intention here when I'm making this choice? What is my thought process, my thinking? Because working back from what is it that I want, what is it I'm trying to achieve, and also considering its impact. I'll give you an example. Like I've made quite a few changes, some of which even act on a micro level, a micro transition. For example, where I live is very much about recycling, but I've also been more conscious about packaging. I do try to go to places where instead of getting the packaging, I'm refilling existing. More mindful of clothing, donating to charity. I tend to buy from charities most times because it's one of the beginnings of ethical practices. It's been, for years. And also, again, another example is I volunteer my time. I mentioned that on another live. I volunteer my time. Sometimes I get to go into schools and talk to parents and children about cycling. And I also train others in cycling. And that was something that I took on board myself to begin with, just to get to know my area, physical fitness, and to overcome a fear of cycling on roads. So I hope you're getting a sense of the relationship of what I'm saying here, what's come back to me as a result, for example, of volunteering, training to become a ride leader. It's given me new skills. It's also given me opportunity to earn money, empowering others. When I do a program, I'm involved in the project. And that's just an example that came back, and it wasn't my initial intention for learning to cycle on the roads. It's just steps further. What's come back to me from donating clothing once every few months, I go through my items, things that I don't use. If I'm not selling it, I donate to charity. And what's come back to me is I have built relationships in my local area, and that has also extended to the fact that I get a benefit every time I'm donating. So I get money off. I'm also spending less money. I'm also learning more about my spending patterns as a result. So it's been a wonderful win-win for me, this experience of practicing this law and also recycling. I'm more mindful of the packaging, because it's got to be taken away, the impacting environment. And that was from one of my travels. I travelled to Burma. This was in 2018, I believe. I went, and I actually was in a beautiful village, and I decided to cycle around. It was an interesting one because the police were following me. I think they they could see I was a tourist, and I felt fine. I felt safe, and I decided to go right to the sea, which is not normally where tourists go, which is probably why the police were following me. And I saw for myself mounds and mounds of rubbish that clearly came from Europe. So that impacted me in a way. So I also drink from a water bottle, which I carry with me when I travel, because anybody that knows me knows I travel quite a bit. It's one of the things I love to do, you know. My grandparents didn't have that. My parents didn't really travel. Mum did a bit before she passed away. She used to like cruises, and she did travel to some of the neighbouring Caribbean islands when she was still alive. Of my family, I'm the one that travelled, because I thought, you know, my parents arrived in the 1960s all the way from Barbados to get acclimatised to a completely different country to raise their family. I thought I couldn't honour them any more in my own ways to travel and to do the things that weren't possible for them before, because Beijing passport didn't allow you to get into most countries. You had to apply for visas first. So, again, I digress. A little story time there. So, the nervous system, why it's important to balance it out, because how you react or respond is linked to how reactive or impulsive you are. And again, with the nervous system, it's an involuntary response. And I haven't spoken about it for some time, and I will, to give you the distinctions. You've got nervous system regulation, so you've got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The easiest way to recognise the distinction between the two is the sympathetic runs up the nerve, the spine, and this is where balancing one's chakras is useful, and I promise I will talk about that at some point, because it's the spirituality and why it's beneficial for you to work on your chakras and to unblock them. That's the deeper work. But it's the sympathetic is basically, it's reacting to perceived threats. So from caveman, you'd be running away possibly from a dinosaur. So to survive, because it's an involuntary response, you would run. So it's fight, flight, freeze. The modern day one is fawn, people pleasing, which is very common, more common than we realise. And it tends to be activated in moments of stress, which is why it's always useful to take inventory of your stressors. I can't mention that enough times or get bored of it. Really, to pay attention to your stressors, understand what those look like for you. It's an invitation, and work to minimise or mitigate, because the reality is when you're dysregulated, you tend to make choices from that place which are not necessarily in your best interest or somebody else's, because they're fear-based, which will bring me on to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest, sleep. Important to have sleep, because sleep will cause one to be very, or lack of sleep, not necessarily to be cognitive of what's going on. So, and disconnected from self, from lack of sleep, and other things will have a factor. And if you've got stress on top, stressing, continuation stress, and you're not necessarily paying attention or doing what you need to do to soothe yourself, then it's understanding that maybe if you're not sleeping enough, because that's when the body rests, relax, repairs itself, particularly after physical exercise, like I need to go to bed soon. Well, I will be going to bed after this, so that I can relax my muscles, because I did strength training today, and I actually did a lot of weights. So my body, I know my body is going to wake up a bit stiffer, particularly with the colder climes. Why are you telling me this, Karen? Because your parasympathetic system is basically how your body reacts after stress has gone, after the perceived threat has gone. But if you are like anxious, or you know this because your body's telling you your heart rate will be up, or you've got racing thoughts going on. If you link it back to the laws of cause and effect, the law of right action, if you're reacting from a place which is fear-based, the outcome's going to be very different from reacting from a place of love. I get it, if there's a situation where there's an emergency, you've got to react. Sometimes it could even be a matter of life and death. So in the moment, time is an issue, and really not considering, I'm not talking about those set of circumstances, emergency, because you're going to react how you're going to react. And hopefully if you've had training like first aid, like I have, you will just know what to do, because it's been drilled into you like driving. You know what to do, which is probably why in most cases you don't always remember your route into work, or when you walk to the shops. So I would invite you to balance between the two. Invite more moments of stillness to enable you to practice the pause. So it's slowing the time between your reactions as much as possible, because as I said, how the in fight, flight, freeze and fall, it's involuntary, but you have got the capacity to slow things down, so you're aware of the observation of self. So when you start to recognise that there might be a part you're playing in the outcomes you're getting, the results, you think more in terms of, as I said earlier, in order to benefit yourself and society as a whole, exercising free will of choice, and to perform a good deed, there's more chance of you doing that. That's what I'm increasing your propensity to do the right thing. So I also would invite you to empty the contents of your mind at night. Data dump, write it all out, rip it up if you don't feel comfortable with anybody seeing it, if you live with others. Just let it go, so that you're allowing your mind rest. because where the mind goes, the body follows. So if the mind's active, it's racing, you're not sleeping, what do you think the body's experiencing? And a question I have for you is, how can I bring love to this experience? I'll say it again. How can I bring love to this, experience? How can I bring love to this experience? So if you can activate that question of self with practicing pause, stillness, growing the self-awareness muscle, then there is a better chance of the right action coming about, you understanding your impact, and the invitation of generosity, love and compassion in the moment. So I've said a lot, my throat is dry. So circling on back to law of cause and effect, in other words, karma, just think of it as a boomerang. Law of right action, it's a boomerang effect. It's going to come back, and it's going to come back multiplied. So it's in your interest for it to be desirable stuff rather than undesirable stuff. And work on the intention, which I think is very beneficial in working towards an emotion or emotions that is vibrating from a magnetic place, which is the love, joy, happiness. Sorry, love is not an emotion, my bad. But joy, compassion, empathy, all that good stuff to give you a higher propensity to do the right thing in the right moment. And when it's not possible, to take it on board yourself, to clean it up. I haven't said that in a while, to clean it up, to do the repair work, especially if it involves others. Sometimes it's not possible, and there'll be sets of circumstances where the best thing could be that is it. But if you can take on board what I'm saying and do the conscious work of cleaning up your side of the garden, taking responsibility and accountability for how you showed up, and do the repair work with others. And that might take a while to work on, and that is okay. We're human beings, we're imperfect, and how we respond to an event, whatever that looks like, is our karma, not anybody else's. What they choose to do and how they behave is theirs, and their choice, their consequences, their exercising their free will. So hopefully what I shared is of use. I would love it if you like, comment and shared. I also would love it if you can send me a message. If you have any questions, that's not something I've invited recently, but if you've got any questions, anything that you think would be beneficial for me to cover, or you need me to go more in depth, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Thank you for dropping in. I know you dropped in for a short while if you watch this again. I'm not sure whether I'm going to show up next week. I might give myself a week off. I'm thinking about it. Anyway, I'll let you know if I don't show up, but there will be a time for Christmas. I'll have off, so I will show up, but probably be very condensed live. Anyway, all the best, and I might see you next week.